Hi everyone, I am Sai Krishna, an experienced web developer from India. I am the instructor for this Django basics tutorial. This tutorial is mainly divided into 4 parts of 30 minutes each. We're gonna discuss topics right from setting up VS Code to developing a web application using Django. So these are the topics we're gonna discuss. So we will start with installing all the required tools like Python, VS Code, DB browser, and then we'll create a virtual environment, and then we will discuss about Django settings, built-in components, and we will discuss about forms, routing, views, all the things required for developing a website. And these are the prerequisites required for understanding this tutorial. So you need to have good knowledge of Python, and you need to have basic understanding of object-oriented programming, because we are going to create class-based views at the end. And you need to have RDBMS, understanding relational database management systems, because we are going to write models, and you need to have knowledge on foreign keys and unique key, primary keys, and all. So having basic understanding of these things will help you in getting learning everything in this tutorial. Let's start with installing Python. So go to python.org website, and then here in download section, if you are on Windows, just go to the Windows section and click on Python 3.10.8 and start installing. So don't forget to check this box. You have to check this box, add Python to path, and then click on install now. It's going to take some time, but Python will be installed. So Python was installed. You can just close it. You can check it using command prompt. Open command prompt and enter Python version. You're getting Python 3.10.8. This is the latest version which you downloaded. So that means you have Python. If you have not installed Python, then you'll get command not found error. So install it properly. And then once your Python is installed, you have to install Visual Studio Code. We use this code editor for writing our code. So go to Visual Studio Code homepage, and here you'll get an option to download for Windows. Download it. Once you download it, just click on the installer, accept the terms, next, next. Add these two things, add code open with code and add open with code, these two things, and then next, install. This is gonna install VS Code. VS Code is installed, and then install DB browser. So go to DB browser homepage, and here you'll have download section. So this DB browser is used for opening MySQL database. Sorry, not MySQL, SQLite database. So SQLite is a lighter version of other relational database systems like MySQL or Oracle. It's a very light version. So go to download section and click on Windows 64-bit installer. So DB browser is installed. Once these three things are installed, you can go to File Explorer, go to somewhere, just create a folder for Django basics tutorial, and then open command prompt. And here, 1 second, I'll check whether Django is installed or not. So So type this command, Django admin is not recognized as cmdlet function. Okay, because Django is not yet installed. So if you're getting this, you're not your Django is not yet installed. So install Django using pip install Django. Okay. Now let's try the command again. Now it's showing Django version. That means Django is properly installed. After this, um, so create a Django app. So Django is properly installed. Next step is to create a Django project. So we can create a Django project using this command, Django admin start project core. You can give it any name you want. It can be my app, my website or something, but I'm giving it core. And if you do ls, you can see core. Here you can see core. If you open it, there is a core folder inside core folder. So code core. When you so code generally opens VS Code and you have to pass a file name or directory. So here in my case I'm passing a directory name, that is core, which is this. When you pass that, so VS Code will automatically open this folder with all the files. So once it is opened, you can just check the files. So this outer directory contains Django project and inner directory contains all the files required for running the Django project. So here we have manage.py. We can see the same file here, and inside we also have other files, settings.py, urls.py, and wsgi.py. It's for telling server. It's for useful when during production. So the outer directory core is contains our Django project. Um, it doesn't matter which name we give it. We can rename to anything else. I'm giving it my website because this is already opened in VS Code. So let's close the VS Code and try again. It's renamed. And then now if you see, it's renamed code my website. I'm passing this directory name now, so it's open. So core folder, the inside core folder, it contains important configuration, and it's the controller. It's like a controller for other apps. It controls all other apps in our Django project. And this manage.py is a utility tool used for running Django commands. For example, if you want to start server, then there is a command called python manage.py run server. If you want to collect static files, then there is a command called python manage.py collect static, or there is some other command for running migrations like python manage.py make migration. So this python manage.py, we won't be interacting with this file, we won't make any changes inside this file, but we will use this file to run commands, Django commands. And then we have this core folder. This is very important. So because it contains settings.py file, the settings.py file contains all the configuration required for running Django application. So here debug is mentioned. So we'll come to the settings.py later after discussing about the other two files. So here we have one more file called urls.py. So urls.py is like table of contents. It describes us what URLs are present, like which routes can be hit from users, and we have this ASGI and WSGI. These are server related files, and we don't need to discuss about these files. And here we have init.py. This file is empty, so it's representing, so it's telling Python that this is a package. So if you are not if you're not aware of those things, you can leave it. It's not, it doesn't matter much. And let's start with settings.py file. So settings.py file contains all the configuration of your Django installation. um, and a settings file is a Python module with module level variables. Like here you can see there are a lot of variables like secret key, debug, allowed host. You can just change these variables to change the project configuration. And let's go through these settings one by one. So first we have base directory. Base directory is present working directory. Like it will get the path of this file, like excluding the file name. So for example, it will be this, but it's inside Python file, and this code is written using Python. So in command line we can get a base directory using pwd, which is present working directory, but in Python you have to write this for getting base directory. And then here we have secret key. So secret key, if you see, there is a security warning, and for debug there is another security warning. That means you have to remember one thing: if there is something like security warning comment, then you have to understand that it's a sensitive information. You should maintain it secretly. You should keep it safe somewhere so that people can't access it. So the secret key contains a random value. So Django generates it randomly, but while production, you have to change it. In development, it might be some value, but developers can see it. But in production, it should be something different so that developers can't access it. Even developers shouldn't be able to access it during production. And here we have for this project, we don't have to worry about this because this is just a tutorial, so you don't have to change anything, but in future you can just give some random value while working. Yeah, like that you can change. And then here we have debug. So debug means whether you should be showing errors to the user or not. That's what debug means. For example, if here debug is turned on, debug is equal to true. That means while developing your website, you can see errors from the um, uh, from the Chrome tab itself. If debug is turned off, even if there is some error, you still won't be able to see it. So for production, it should be turned off because in production, users should not be able to see the debugging information. But in development, debug should be turned off because it helps you in debugging your code. Because it will Django has very good debugging feature, like you can see lot complete information of the error. You'll get entire trace back. And it's very useful while building any project. So keep this in mind: debug, turned on while production, but sorry, debug should be turned off during production, and it can be turned on during development. And here we have another setting called allowed host. So allowed host is nothing but you can just put some URLs here inside this array. For example, if you want to allow some API calls from Google, then you can give google.com http slash. Yeah. So this server will only accept API calls from this particular URL. If you want to give multiple URLs, you can still do that. If you want to allow local host to access it, then you can just give it like 0.0.0.1. So localhost will be able to access it. For example, for this tutorial, we don't have to worry about this. We'll just give a wild character asterisk. So when you give asterisk in allowed host, it will take everything. Like it will receive API calls from everywhere. So, but in production, you should avoid this. Um, for example, in this tutorial, anyway, we are going to develop from localhost. So let's keep it 127.0.0.1. Yeah, it's good. So this means it's localhost. This is the IP address of your local computer. Next, we have something called installed apps. So in Django, we have something called apps. Apps is nothing but a piece of your project. So so we write Django. So we develop Django project in using multiple apps. For example, an e-commerce website can have apps like product app and payment app and authentication app, or um, product description app, like that. You can have multiple apps. Each app will take care of some things in the project. So we do it for maintaining code in a better way. Also, it's very developer friendly. So yeah, we develop apps like that. And all these apps were controlled using this core app. So this core app is like a controller. If you go to the urls.py, we will just create all the apps and we'll assign those URLs here. We'll just include those URLs here. So all these apps will be controlled from the core app. So you don't you'll know it like when we go there, you'll know all these things. So you don't have to worry about all these things now. Next, let's go to settings again. So we have middleware, so ignore it for now. You don't have to worry about that. Templates, yeah, this is a setting we have to care about because this contains directories. So if you are developing like front end using Django templates, then like if you are writing HTML inside Django, then you have to include those HTML files in this folder. You can just include the entire folder, entire directory which contains all the templates, so Django can access them. And there's some server related thing, and here in databases it contains database configuration. So Django can handle multiple databases, but this is the default one. There will be a default one, and the default one here is SQLite 3 database, and name of the database is base directory slash dblite db.sqlite3. Means the database name will be this, and it will be created inside this base directory folder which we discussed before, which is present working directory, and which was taken from here. Yeah. Yeah, for example, if you want to use a MySQL database, there will be a different configuration. You can just go to the documentation and you can refer that. For each database, you'll have different configuration. The best thing about Django is it supports all the databases, major databases, and it has a feature called ORM, Object Relational Mapper. You can write Python code to make changes in the database, to read, retrieve, delete, whatever. You can do CRUD operations with Django, like Python code itself. Um, but yeah, actually ORM acts like a layer between database and the server. ORM acts like a layer. So your Python queries, whatever it's there, it's converted into database queries using ORM, and ORM will query from the database and it will give you the information. So whenever you have to change the database, you just have to change the setting here. That's it. You don't have to change any SQL because there is no SQL here. There is only Python code, and ORM take care of the migration. Or the password validator. See, these are some validators for password. So there is some minimum length validator, common length validator. You can add even more validators. These are some fundamental one which are required. So they're coming by default, but if you want some, you can just go to the documentation and you can just add them. And yeah, language code, we can ignore this. Static URL, this is the path. We're telling like static files will be stored inside this folder. We're telling Django that static files will be stored inside this folder. And then we have default auto field, you can just ignore this. So these are the main settings which you have to care about. We already discussed all of them. And then next we have to discuss about urls.py file. So let's see the urls.py file. So here you can see this file contains core URL configuration. So core is the app name. This is the core app. This app acts like a controller. It controls all other apps. We already discussed it. And then here we have URL patterns, which is this one, which will contain all the routes, and it will all contain information related to route and the view attached to that route. So URL takes care of that. It acts like a table of contents. So Django provides us a clean, elegant way to describe our URLs. We can write any URLs. We have static URLs, URLs which don't change. We can also use dynamic URLs. We can also use URLs based on regular expressions. So Django has all these features. So requests and responses are processed through these URLs. So this is very pretty much important. And let's start by creating a Django app. So this is all about URL. So let's start by creating some apps and let's start building our project. So first, before that, we have to create something called as virtual environment. So virtual environment is pretty much important while building some projects, because um, you may have like you may have installed a project now, but later after 1 year, when you install, like there might be so many updates in Django and other libraries which you included in your project. So when you run the project at that particular time, so your code might not work because some functions or some classes may be removed and some things may be added. The functionality might be changed, the response may be changed. So it will create a lot of problems. So for maintaining the version of all the packages you installed, we have to create something called as virtual environment. So in Python, it's very simple. You can use this command, Python -m -v env. So your you have to pass this parameter and then the name of the environment you want to create. Like you have to give a name to the environment. So when you do enter, so VS Code will ask this, click on yes, and then so you can see here it's creating a env folder, and it will contain scripts, some lib contains all the libraries which you install. So um, after installing this, you have to activate this virtual environment. You can activate it using this command, source env. It can be small also, source env scripts / activate. So when you activate it, you'll see something like env here. Actually, this is a bash shell. If you don't have bash shell, you can just use a command prompt. It's similar, source env /scripts / activate. So it's telling source is not recognized as internal or external command because this is command prompt. For Windows command line, you have to use it like this, env /scripts / activate. So now virtual environment is activated. You can see here. For bash, command is source env /script / activate. For command line, it's this. Once this is done, so you have activated virtual environment, and next step you have to install whatever you need. If you have something to install, then you can install, and after installing, you have to do this pip freeze requirements .txt. So when you do that, so this is when you do this, you are getting the output from pip freeze and you're passing it to requirements.txt file. If file is not there, then this will create a new file. So we're doing that here. If you open requirements file, there is nothing as of now, but let's install Django here. Pip install Django. Here we are installing inside virtual environment because we want to isolate, we want to isolate from the outside environment, like global environment. So install Django again. Okay, Django is installed. So if you do pip freeze again, you can see Django and related dependencies are also installed. Now you can just do pip freeze again, pip freeze requirements.txt. So if you open requirements file, you can see all the requirements here. So if some other developer after 2 years, 3 years, someone is installing someone is trying to run your project, then what they have to do is they have to just come or clone your project, and they have to do this. They have to create a virtual environment first, then they have to install these requirements like r requirements.txt. So this flag -r means install everything recursively to this. So we already have all the requirements, that's why we're getting this. But if user don't have these things, then they will be installed. These things will be installed. So once this is done, let's start creating apps. Before that, let's see our application on live. So let's start our server. For starting server, we have a command called Python manage.py run server. But you have before running the server, you have to check settings.py and make sure debug is true, because it won't run because we haven't made any changes now. Like we haven't created any app, so it won't run if debug is turned off. So make debug on for now, and then run server using this command, this manage.py utility. And if you open this URL, you can just click on control and click on the link. It will open the URL. So you can see the your website is running live on the local host. In the last session, we did basic setup required for developing Django applications. We installed Visual Studio Code, DB browser, Python, and we created a virtual environment. In that virtual environment, we installed Django and created a Django project. After that, we started Django project and we saw the server is running in localhost. We covered topics like Django settings, built-in components, and file structure, manage.py, utility, all the things required for starting with Django. So now in this video, I'll give you a quick recap of whatever we did in last session, and also at the end of all the videos, we will be creating this project. We will be creating a blog applications. This is not a simple blog. So in this blog application, you can view your blog posts. You can create a new blog post. Here, if we want to create, we can go similar to Notion. We can just create a new blog post like my new blog post. This is a sample blog. Also, we can create checklists: item 1, item 2, item 3. We can save this blog post. Once it is saved, we can go to the home page. We can see a new blog post was created. And if I go into the blog post, you can see the blog post created. Now you can't do anything because it's in reading mode. You can edit the blog. You can click on the edit button. Now it's in the writing mode. You can do changes and then you can save again. If you go back, you can see the changes updated. So this is the blog application we are going to create at the end. So by making this project, we'll be learning all the topics. So let's start with the tutorial. Before that, I'll be giving you a quick recap of whatever happened in the last session. So I'm creating a new folder here. Blog. Code. Blog. Now I'll be opening terminal. And here I'll be creating a new virtual environment. Once virtual environment is created, you can install Django. After that, you can, first you have to go activate the virtual environment. So for that, you can do this command, then install Django. So Django is installed inside the virtual environment. Once Django is installed, let's create a new Django project. And I'm creating this project inside this folder. So as you can see, manage.py file is there and core folder is there. Core is the main app, and we will be creating another app. So we created an app, but let's try running the application. So let's start the server. .py run server. So server is running in the local host. We can check it. As you can see, Django project is running live. Now let's start building the blog which I showed you earlier. So this is the default page which comes when you start Django server, but we need to customize it. We need our own pages to appear. So for that, we'll be creating an app which we already created here. It can be of any name. So once you create app, just create new file urls.py. So we will be creating URL patterns here. and inside that we will give some URLs. Like here, by default, for the default route, it should be views.index and name is equal to blog index view. And if you see, there is no module called views because we have to import it from dot import views. So this will import views, and here we have path. So let's create something called, so we have to import path from Django dot URLs import path. So as you can see, no error now, but there is no index function. So we have to create an index function now. So it's similar, like it's a normal Python function which you can create index. It takes one parameter request, and then it will return HTTP response. Let's import it. So for importing, for getting these suggestions, you can use control space. So when you use control space, you'll get all the suggestions. Import this django.http. So once you import it, just pass something like, so if you reload the server, nothing will happen. As you can see, nothing will happen. Why? But we have assigned this we created URLs file and we assigned this index function to the URLs, but still it's not working because it's not yet linked to the core URLs. So as we discussed in the last video, core URLs is the main URLs file. It's like a center, it's like a controller. It controls all other apps. So when you create URLs in other apps, you have to link those URLs inside core URLs. For example, here we have to link like path. For example, if it's the URL extra URL thing is empty, then it should go for, so let's include it, control space and import the include from django.urls. Done. Now if we load this, we will see hello world, as you can see. But what if we want to render some HTML? For example, if you want to render something like h1 hello world, you can still do it. You can just give h1 tags here. See, it's h1 now. For example, if you want to make it italic, it will still work. So you can pass HTML inside this HTTP response. It will still work. It will render the HTML inside this uh, page. But what if you want to pass something like HTML pages? We can still do it. We can create separate HTML files, and then we can pass the HTML files, and Django will automatically render those HTML files inside this web page. Django URLs are very flexible. You can use regular expressions, or you can use dynamic URLs. For example, if we want to use dynamic URL, for here I'll create a path and let's keep it up. Create view. Now let's create greet function here inside views file. Greet of request return. And addition, other than request, we also have to pass other parameter called name, because name is getting passed here in this file here, string str name and views.create. So we're getting name parameter and we will return it. hello name. So if you refresh the page, you can see hello Mohan. For example, if I do hello Sai, you can see it's hello Sai. You can pass integers also. For example, I can make it but here I have to change it to int. If I change it and if I pass 5, so there is some error. Let's fix it. So it should be ID because here we're passing ID, so we have to keep it ID here. If we refresh now, okay, there is one more error. So if you're getting errors, you don't have to worry. That means you have to fix somewhere, and Django gives you very detailed traceback. You can just get it so easy. Concatenate not string to int. Okay, so in Django you can't concatenate string with integer. So for that I'm using string formatting id. So if I refresh again, now it's showing hello 5. If I give 1000, it's working. So this is how dynamic URLs work. You can make it like use for more advanced cases. So let's leave this now. Let's start creating blog, which we discussed. So for that, I'm creating a new app called blog, Python manage.py. You can use Python manage.py or Django admin. Both are same. Python manage.py start app blog. Now I'm creating a urls.py file here. urls.py URL patterns. And views.py file. Okay, let's leave it for now. Let's go to core URLs and let's include blog URLs. For example, if user make request to blog route, then we should include blog URLs to that route, blog.urls. Okay, let's create a sample URL now. Path dot index name is equal to blog index view blog index, and let's import it. Sorry, from dot import views, and here in views let's create a function, index function. Let's import this, control space, import, done. So let's go to blog route and we have to start server, python manage.py run server. Refresh. Okay, blog route is created. So for this tutorial, I used Bootstrap templates for creating that blog. I'll show you the template. So if we go to getbootstrap.com, and if you go to examples, here you can see all the examples. Just download the examples and save it somewhere. Once you save it, go to the folder where you saved it and extract it. Extract all. Okay, these examples are extracted. So for this tutorial, we are using this blog example. So as you can see, it's very similar. We customized it according to our need. So here it's, yeah, this one, blog. So we got blog CSS file and index HTML file. So this HTML file contains all the code. One second, let me open this in Visual Studio Code. Okay, here we have index.html file, and this index.html file we have all the HTML related to that page. So we also have CSS file. The CSS is related to that page, and it's by default it's importing Bootstrap. Like uh, so this is the CSS file. So we have to use these files in our Django project. So we have to use these things in our Django project. So let's start working on that. 127, 8000, blog. So instead of this, we need to show this blog, this entire page instead of this. And for that, we have this HTML. We have to show that HTML. We have to add the styles so that we will get that particular blog in our Django app. So for that, it's very simple. So go to your Django project, and here just copy the files from that folder to this folder. So here in core, I'm creating a folder for templates. So new folder, templates. So this folder contains all the HTML files, and I'm creating one folder for static files. Static. Inside that, I'm creating a folder called assets. Inside that, I'm creating folder for CSS and one folder for JavaScript and one folder for vendor, means third-party libraries. Okay, here inside CSS we have to add this CSS. Just drag and drop it inside the CSS folder, and HTML folder have to drag it inside templates. So we have this index file and we have CSS file. So we should use it inside this app. So for that, first you have to go to settings file and we have to include it. So here you'll have templates. Yeah, you can see you have templates variable. Here inside directories, you have to add base directory slash, yeah, this is going to take a templates from this folder, which is base directory is the project directory, and core slash templates, that means this folder. Yeah, this folder, it's going to take templates from this folder. And then here in static, okay, static is looking good, so it's okay. Okay, now it's time to use that template file, which is index.html file, inside this view. For that, we have to use another function called render. Instead of HTTP response, we have to use render. So for HTTP response is for passing HTML input inside that function, whereas render function will take template name. So it will take template name, it will take request parameter, and it will show, it will render the template in the browser. So render request, comma. So its templates folder is going inside this folder, right? So we have to pass index.html. Like we don't have to pass the entire URL, we just have to pass URL relative to this folder. Okay, now let's see our app. If I refresh it, okay, it's rendering the HTML content. If you see the text, the HTML is rendered, but styles are not coming up. So for that we have to see. Let's open inspect tab using Control Shift I, or you can do right click and then you can click on inspect. So you'll go to the inspect tab. Here just go to network and refresh it and keep it in all and make sure disable cache is turned on. So this is for development mode. Once you have all these things, you can see bootstrap.min.css 404 and blog.css it's also 404. That means these files are not present inside, like server couldn't find these files. If I hover on this, you can see it's showing localhost slash asset slash this slash css something, but it's not at all there. So we have to include this bootstrap file and also this blog.css file. So blog.css file, it's taken from blog slash blog.css, but there is no css file at that place. Actually blog.css is present here. It's present inside static assets slash css. So for that, let's do first, let's check about this bootstrap. So let's install, let's download bootstrap. So for getting bootstrap, go to getbootstrap.com and go to download, save. So here distribution version we have it. So go to download and extract it. Actually you have to extract this one, extract all, extract. Okay, once you have all these files, just copy these folders and keep them inside static folder like vendor which we created. So vendor is for third party libraries, for example bootstrap. So let's keep these two folders inside vendor. So we have all these things. So the bootstrap dot min.css which was missing is present here, bootstrap dot min.css. So we have to change the path in index.html. You can see, so the h reference, it's different, we have to change it. Then here it's taking bootstrap from asset slash distribution slash css, but it's not there, it's here inside vendor folder, so we have to change it. So we can change it like so. In Django we have something called as static tag. For that we have to load static. So once you do this, you'll have the static variable which you can use anywhere inside this h references. So for example, if I want to get a particular file, you can just refer from this static variable. So the main advantage you get from this static variable is, so if you change this files, like if you replace, if you keep these files at some other place, you just have to change static URL in settings.py, and settings.py will take care of everything. Like you don't have to change the URL at every place, you just have to change at one place and it takes care of everything. So that's the main advantage you get. And for getting for using that static tag, it's simple. So we'll use bracket and percentage. We'll be calling static and we'll keep this inside single quotes, and we will end this using percentage bracket. So this is ended, but this URL is not valid because it's present, this file is present inside assets slash vendor slash bootstrap bootstrap.min.css. If I reload the page, let's check the URL now. Previously it was something else, but now if you see, it's going to static slash asset slash vendor slash whatever we wanted, it's going there. But why it's throwing the error? Suppose if I open it, nothing is coming here. So one reason for that is in settings.py file, include a variable called static files directories. It's a tuple, and inside the tuple, let's give os.path.join base directory core. Inside core we have static folder, core static. Yeah. Let's import os. Now let's try again. Okay, so it's a tuple, so it can't have one value. We have to put comma so that Python will identify that it's a tuple. So let's get the relative path of this CSS file. Copy relative path and then just replace this URL and remove this thing from here. So as you can see, the styling is changed. It's using Bootstrap styling now, but still it's not looking as same as this because the reason is block.css is not yet imported. So let's work on that as well. For example, here, let's do the same thing, static, and inside that percentage. Okay, inside this, let's get relative path of this file, block.css, copy relative path, and then control V, and then just remove this part, save it, refresh it. Now if you see, it looks exactly similar. So this is how you can use templates inside Django. You can have HTML files and you can write CSS files, and then you can just use them inside Django. In the last video, we saw how to use templates inside Django. We created some CSS files, HTML files, and we used them inside Django. In this video, we're gonna make it even more functional. So if you see, this is the blog application that we are going to create, and this is the blog which we have right now. So if you see, we have a main blog here, and we don't need this main blog. Instead, we want this inside a separate page, and here we will provide list of blocks. As you can see here, we will be showing list of blocks, and for doing that, we just have to isolate this content from this page to a separate page. So when user clicks on a particular link, it should go into this blog. So let's make it index.html. So the content which we have to exclude will start from here. As you can see, sample blog post. So this div contains the blog post. Let's cut it using Ctrl X and then create a new template file called blog.html, paste it here, and then go to views.py file, views inside blog, and create a new function called define blog post, define post of request. Then we will render. Actually, let's rename it to post request, comma, post.html. Now let's reload it. As you can see, it's not there here anymore. And if I go to post, it's not there because the URL is not yet defined. Let's go to URLs, blog, if I reload this, so now you can see the sample block, but it's not as good as this main blog page, because this blog page has some padding here, this has some margin here, and there is a header which we want inside this blog page, but it's not there. So let's make it. So let's go to this page first. For having the padding, margin, the layout, everything, we can just have. So this blog looks good. So if I go to blog/post, okay, we have it. But this doesn't look good, because if you go to the previous post, it has some margin here and there is a header and everything is looking good. But if you see this post, it's plain HTML, no styling, nothing. So let's add styles. So for post.html, we'll go inside this, and for having all the styles, we just have to import these tags. This one over here, and let's keep it on the top. And we also need these two things, copy and paste. If I reload this now, okay, invalid block static, because we are using the static block and we didn't include it. So for including, you can use static load static. If I reload it now, you can see it's much better. We got all the styling, but still there is some issue. We don't have margin. For having this margin, it's simple. Div, and we will put it alt and up arrow, and if you do that, it will go inside the div. And here this is using bootstrap, so we can give a class called container. If you reload it, so now you can see there is some margin, and you don't have header. So if you need header, you can just go to the index.html page. You can grab the header. So header, okay, this is the header. So let's copy and let's do this. So if I reload this, we have a header, and we also need a footer, this one. Here we don't have that footer. So for getting that footer, go to the index.html file, just get the footer. Okay, we got the footer. If I refresh and go down, yeah, we have footer now. And one thing which we didn't include is here in index.html, we have some styling here, but we are not using that styling here. So for using the styling here, we can just copy paste it. But instead of copy pasting this long code, you can just do one thing. You can keep the styles inside a CSS file similar to this one, and we can load the CSS file here. For that, you just copy the styles and create a new file called CSS and paste it, and then remove the style tag. Instead, copy the same line here and here make it index.css. It's not inside vendor, it's inside asset/css. Okay, good. So if I reload now, okay, it's same because the styles are related to the images and all. But yeah, we're loading it at the two places. Oh, we are not loading it yet. Let's copy this line, go to post.html, paste it, refresh it. Yeah, now at both places we are loading this file. And next step, but you can see here there is code repetition. For example, we are copying from this file, like whatever the data is present here, and we are putting it here, and we are doing the same thing. We are we copied the header, and we pasted it here, and we are also doing the same thing. We had footer in two places, and we are pasting it here. For example, in future, if you have like 10 pages and you are copying pasting and at 10 places, if you have to change the footer, like the link maybe something, then you have to change in all the 10 places. So for avoiding that, we have some features in Django which let us avoid all these things. We just have to write once, and we can use them anywhere. So if you have to change something, you can change at that one place, and everywhere you'll see the change. So for that, you have something called as include tag. So I'll show you how to use that. For example, let's create a folder called layouts here, so this layout folders contain will contain the common components. For example, let's create a new file called header.html, and for footer, create a new file called footer.html. And if I go to index.html, and now I can see the header here. Let's copy it, Control X, header, paste it, and if you reload it, now you won't see the header, but we will use the include tag. So this is blog post blog. Yeah, we can't see the header, but we can include the header using include tag. For example, so we have removed header here. Instead we can add header like include header.html, but it's inside layouts slash header.html. If I refresh it now, you can see the header is back again, but it's coming from the layouts folder inside this header. So just copy it, and if you want to use the same in post, then you can just delete this and paste it. Save and run, and let's go to post. Okay, so you can see header is there, it's not removed, it's coming from this layout folder. Okay, we are changing URLs here, so instead of doing that, we can just click on this continue reading, and it can just redirect to that page. So for having that action, just change the URLs. So go to index.html. So here we have continue reading. So I am selecting places wherever there is continue reading. So here, here, and here, there are 3 places. First, okay. So I'm selecting here, I'm pressing Alt, and then I'm going to the second link, and I'm going to the third link. Now I'll be doing backspace, and here I can give like post, escape. So it's changed at the 3 places. So that's the benefit of using Alt and like pressing in Visual Studio Code. So it allows you to change lines at multiple places, like multiple lines at once. So if I refresh, if I go to continue reading, so it's going to post, but post is not there. Okay, blog slash post. Sorry about that. So blog slash post. If I go back, reload, and then continue reading, yeah, it's going to the post now. And let's change this header URL to be like here if we click on this, it's not going anywhere. So for me, what I want is when I click on this, it should go to the home page. So we can do that. We can just go to header.html, just change the h reference to slash, reload it. Now it's going to the base page, but I want this to be going to blog page, blog header. So now it's going to the blog page, main blog page. And okay, it's not changed here. Blog slash post, blog slash post, refresh. Yeah, large, same, going to the same page. So you can see we didn't change the link URL in two pages, like this page and post page. We just changed it inside this header.html, and it's reflected in both the places. That's the benefit we get using include tag. So now let's change the title to my portfolio. For example, yeah, for that we have to go to header and here change it to my portfolio. Okay, so you can see on my blog, you can keep it my blog. Yo. And if we go to the page, it's same. And we can do the same to the footer. We can use include tags for getting footer. So right now the footer.html is empty. Let's get footer from HTML. Cut it and paste it. Now include it. Footer.html. So if I refresh this now, footer is still there. Okay, I have to go to this page. Footer is still there, but it's coming from layouts. So copy this and paste it inside post. So I'm removing this and pasting it. Same thing happens with post. Footer is still there, but it's coming from other place. So this is all about the include tag. So the main benefit we get from the include tag is we can extract HTML from pages and we can keep them inside some components, like we can keep them as some components and then we can use them using include tag. So this helps us to eliminate code duplication. So we don't write code at multiple places. We just write once and we will use it everywhere. And we can, like, also if you want to make any change, you just have to change it one place and changes will be reflected everywhere. So that's one other benefit which we get with include tag. So there is one more tag which is very important, that is exclude tag. So now let's discuss about the exclude tag. The main benefit we get from include tag is we can extract the code from pages and we can keep them as separate components and we can use them anywhere we want. If you have to change something at some place, then like in footer for example, then you don't have to change it everywhere. You just have to change it once and the changes will be reflected everywhere. Similar to that, we have something called as extend tag. Extends is very different from include tag, but the benefits are almost same. We will be using it to avoid code duplication, and also yeah, you don't have to change everywhere. You just have to change once and everything will be reflected. So the way include works is you will write code and if you want to extract it, you'll extract it and then you'll include it in templates. But exclude tag, extends tag works like this. Like you'll create a base template first, and that base template will contain all the header, footer, and meta information like this. Meta, meta information like this, and whatever script tags you have, it will contain everything. Then you will be rendering whatever template you have inside the base template. So I'll create a new file called base.html, and inside I'll just copy the index file and I'll put it inside base.html, and here I will remove the main body. So okay, we have meta information, and then we have, yeah, header and footer. So this is the base template, and we will be using this template in other files. For example, index.html and post.html. So these index.html and post.html will extend base.html, and we will be putting whatever the content inside index or post.html, we'll be putting this content inside this body. For keeping that, it's simple. We just have to create something called as blocks. We can give block names. For example, I'll create a block here. I'll show you, then you'll understand. So here we will create a block called block content. So whatever content is there, it should be provided here. So we will be using this thing, and we will write code inside this block, inside this files, and Django will automatically render the content inside these tags inside this base template. So let's remove the duplicate things. So I'm removing all the things from here to here, and I'm removing here to here. Now we have main tag and this thing. Okay, so first line you have to mention like this is extending the template base.html, and yeah, we have to mention the tags. For example, here we have to put content inside this block. Cut it and paste it inside this. If you check it, it's same. Nothing is changed, but now you're extending this. So if you see, your index file is very small compared to before, because we were not including the meta information, these tags anywhere. We're just getting all this thing from base.html, and we can do the same thing to post.html. Previously, if you open it, like if you open the post.html, you can see we are not proper maintaining proper semantics, but now we will maintain it. Like, I'm just removing this, and I'm just removing this. Okay, similar to that, I'm giving here base.html. Now if I refresh this, I'll go to a blog, same, but you're getting all this header and footer and everything from this base.html. So you're extending it, and one advantage now you're getting is this page now has all the meta information. Previously it didn't have, because we didn't copy the same thing there, but now it's getting all the meta information, and you're reducing code. You're not giving all this information, and you're also not doing this include tag. You're not writing the same thing again and again. and you're just excluding the common things. So for example, here the header and footer, they're very common, they're common in every page, so you're just abstracting them from that page. I mean, you're just getting those things from base.html now. So this is all about the extends tag. So in this session, we discussed about include tag and extends tag. In the last video, we created this blog. We created it using Bootstrap example. And in this video, our goal is to create this create functionality so that we can create some new blocks and we can save it. So before that, I'll just explain you how this actual block works. So here, if you want to create a new block, so we have to click on the create button, which is inside this header, and after that you will see this thing, the editor panel, where you can just write something. For example, this is my blog, sample blog, and you click on save. When you click on save, the blog will be saved. As you can see, the blog post 5, it's saved. If you go there, you can see your blog is there. And so we are going to create this functionality in this video. So all this is happening because of the database. Like we are storing the data in the database, and when you're retrieving blogs, like you're retrieving the data from the database. So without database, you can't store it. So even if I restart the server now, still this data will be stored, and you can whenever you run the server, you will have this information on your website. So that's possible because of database. So let's have a quick look on the database. So this is the database that's being used by this actual blog application. So it's using SQLite for browsing SQLite, you need DB browser. So once you are inside DB browser, just click on open database, go to that. Like you don't have to do this because we haven't created any database as of now, so you don't have to do this. Just see what's happening. So I'm selecting database. As you can see, there are many tables and indices. So forget about these indices, we don't need them now. So here we have tables, and you can see nearly 10 tables, and most of them are not created by us. Django automatically creates for like for making those inbuilt applications work. So we can ignore these tables for now. The only table which we created is this blog table. You can see here it's inside the blog app, and inside blog app we created a model called blog. A model is simply a representation of a table. So you can, when you create a model and when you do migration, Django automatically create tables for you. So if I open this table, so if I browse data, as you can see in ID, it's incremented value, it's automatically generated, and we have a content column. So this content column stores information related to blog. After that, we have something called as creation date. Like whenever we create a new blog, we will assign that present time, that particular time, that particular moment inside this creation date. And publish date, whenever you click on save, the publish date will be stored here inside this column. So before going to implementation, let's understand how we are going to implement it. So first, we need to create a create button here. We need to add a create button here. So when you click on create button, it should go into a page. For example, if you click on create button here, and I'll open inspect tab, I'm clicking on the create button. So I clicked on create button. So it's going to slash create route first. Once it went to the slash dot create, then it's going to this route. So if you see status code here, there is 302. Actually, what's happening inside the code is like we wrote code in such a way that when you click on create button, so a new instance of blog will be created, means a new column will be created here, and content will be null, and creation date will be given, publish date will be null. So as you can see here in this column, the content, it's an empty JSON, but creation date is there, publish date is null. That means we created this blog, but we haven't saved it. So we will give something, and we'll click on save. When you click on save, as you can see, something happened, and the form data, it's a post request. Let me show you that. Headers, it's a post request, and payload, we are passing this data, and we are getting response. Like if we are getting a response, it's to if status code is 200, that means it's successfully inserted. So I can go back, and now you should be able to see block number 6. So let's start implementing this. I'll be going to the header.html. Here we have my blog and sign up link, but here I'll be adding another button, button sm. These are bootstrap classes. This is used for styling. Line success. Sorry, should be in the under class. And href should be slash blog slash create. If you save and refresh the page, as you can see some button here. Let's give some padding. Sorry, margin X should be something like 2. So you can see we got some margin now. So when you click on the route, it's going to the slash create route, but there is no URL like slash create, so let's create it. Let's go to urls.py file. Inside blog, there is something called as urls.py. Go there and create a route. Path create. So let's create a create function inside this views file. So let's go to views file. Let's create a function create of request return render. Actually, we saw here, like when you click on create, first it will go to slash create route, and then it will create a new instance, and Django internally redirects that page to slash update route. We are doing that because we're using advantage of update route for uh, for this create action. We don't have to do it 2 times. So you'll understand. If you're getting confused, it's okay. You'll understand when you implement it. So let's do this. So for redirection, we have another function, that is redirect. You have to just pass route, like I want to redirect to update route slash id. You'll get an error, but let's keep it for suppose 25. If I refresh this and if I go to create, as you can see, it's going to create, but okay, we are getting an error, cannot can only concatenate string, not into string. Okay, there is an error here. Let's use string formatting. 25. Now if I go back and click on create, So it's going to slash update slash 25 route. As you can see, first I'll show you what's happening. So we are clicking on create. First it's going to create route, which is here, create, and then it will run this function views.create. When it goes inside that function, we're just redirecting it to slash update slash 25. Before that, we have to discuss about models. So Django has something called as models. So models contain a structure of data. For example, I'll show you a model inside app. Let's go to blog. We can create here itself class blog. It's inheriting from model class, and let's define fields. We have to define fields here. They're similar to the columns. So fields are nothing but columns. So ID, you can ignore it. Django will automatically generate it. So you have to focus on these three columns. So first column is content, creation date, publish date. So content is equal to models dot text field. Publish date models dot date time field. Creation date is equal to models dot date time field. So once you create models, Django has to know, like we have to connect this app in settings.py file, otherwise Django can't recognize these models. So here in installed apps, just create in my apps, just add your blog app. Once you're done with this, just go to terminal, enter. If you don't forget to activate the virtual environment. If it's not activated, command is simple: source env slash scripts slash activate. Once you activate virtual environment, just run command python manage.py make migrations. As of now, if you check database, so let's open the database which is present inside your working folder. So as you can see, there is a db.sqlite3. Let's open it. So where is it? I saved it inside Django Basics blog here. As you can see, there are no tables now because you just did make migrations, but you didn't use migrate command. For that, use python manage.py migrate. This will apply all the migrations. Make migrations is like a staging command. It won't create all the tables, or it won't make any changes in the database, but it will be the changes will be in the staging. When you run migrate command, all the changes will be reflected in the database. As you can see, there are many changes like done. If you open the database now, if I open it again, as you can see, there are new tables and indices. We didn't create all these tables. I just created this table which is blogs underscore blog. So naming is given like this because Django, for creating uniqueness, what it's doing is it's taking the app name, which is blog, and it's creating a table with that app name. So blog underscore table name. So that's how it's doing. So I just created a model for this one, but as you can see, there are many tables. So Django is automatically creating it. Django is creating all the tables to make these features work. If you open the table, you can see you have all the columns like content, creation date, and publish date. And Django automatically created this ID field for us. It's an integer and auto incremented constraint. Uh, it's an integer and it has auto increment constraint. And here we have content, text type, date time. As you can see, everything is done for us by Django. So this is something we call as ORM, so object relational mapper. So this is one of the best feature of Django. So you don't have to write SQL code, you just have to write Python code, and Django automatically take care of migrations and all. Like Django automatically creates tables, fields for you. So as you can see here, we created a Python class and Django is creating a table for us. And similarly, for inserting data, for updating data, we don't have to write Python like SQL code. We can just use this model objects for doing all the operations. So it's so simple. So one advantage we get with ORM is it's very flexible. If we go to settings.py, you can see database settings are present here. If you want to use some other database, for example MySQL, you just have to change the parameters, engine name, and you'll give username, password, and Django will shift this SQLite, like Django will start using MySQL database, and there won't be an issue. For example, MySQL code is the SQL written in MySQL or SQLite, they're different. So if you write SQL code, then your project may not work. Like there will be some errors, issues. But because of this ORM, like we don't have to worry about those things because Python is same everywhere. But we are not doing that. Actually, ORM acts like a layer between database and your Python code. So you'll write Python code, and ORM, suppose if you're using Oracle SQL, ORM will convert SQL related to Oracle. So you won't be facing any issue during migration from one database to another database. That's that's one of the biggest advantages you get with ORM. So that's all about ORM. So we have created a table here. If you want to make some changes into the table, for example, here I'm going to models, and if I need any other field like title, models dot character field. So the difference between character field and text field is that character field will have text limit, whereas text field does not have text limit. Like it's very big compared to the character field. And okay, we created this title column. So let's do the same thing again. Python manage.py make migrations. So as you can see, there is some error. Character field must define max length attribute. So let's give some max length. Not this. Max length 50 characters. And I'll run the migration again. Let's give it 1. Now, so it's asking, so you're doing migration to an existing table, right? So it's asking what if there is some data, and what will you do with the publish state. Like let me scroll through the error. So you can see it is impossible to add a non-nullable field title to blog without specifying a default. This is because the database needs something to populate existing rows. Okay, so for title I'm keeping, if previously there is no title but now we created it, so for the previous rows it's asking what value you want to keep. None. Yeah, let's Python manage.py migrate. Okay, now let's refresh it. Okay, we have a title table now, a title column now. Oh, before going to the main functionality, let's understand about Python shell. So Python shell is an interactive terminal feature where you can just work on models or anything related to the Django app in this Python shell. For example, I can use it using python manage.py shell. If I do that, so it's in interactive mode. Now I can import something like from blog dot models import blog. So if I want to get all the blog instances, so all the columns present inside this blog table, so it's simple. I can do it like blog dot objects dot all. As you can see, it's empty. So for creating a blog instance, it's simple. You can just create objects dot create. Here you can pass title like my sample blog. We want something, this column content, publish date is equal to none, creation date is equal to datetime dot datetime dot now. So datetime is not defined. From datetime import datetime dot now. Enter. So blog new instance is created. Instance means a row, a new row is created. See, as you can see, a new row is created, but every row here we can see they're not null. Like there is a constraint, not null constraint, which is not allowing us to have null values here. So for avoiding that, we can just pass here. So we can make it null is equal to true. And now let me run the migrations. Manage.py make migrations, manage.py migrate. So if I go and if I refresh this table, so for that let's open this database again, open this blog. As you can see, in publish date there is no not null constraint now, so publish date can be null. For example, if I make publish date as none and if I insert it again now, Django will take it. So a new blog instance is created. If I just go and browse the data, go to blog, as you can see, publish date is null. So this is all good. These are the basics of Django models. You can create models using Python shell. You can just view them using command called blog.objects.all. This is called querying. So you're querying all the objects present inside the blog model. So as you can see, you're getting the object. If you want to delete all of them, it's simple. Blog objects dot delete. Sorry, first you have to call it all, then delete it. So all the blocks are deleted. If I go back and if I refresh the table, see, all the columns are deleted. So these are the basics of Python models. Now we have to use it inside our blog application. Go here, go to the create function, just create objects dot create. First we have to import blog, then blog create. Let's pass parameters which are column names. If you see models, you can pass title, content, creation date, publish date. So here title will be none. So these are the parameters that we are going to pass. As you can see, we have title, content, creation date, and publish date, and we are using the same parameters: title, content, publish date, creation date. But here in publish date, we have null is equal to true. So if you don't pass anything, like it will be null automatically. It's assigned as none. So you can just ignore it. So you don't have to pass it here. And for creation date should be present date time. So let's give it like this and import it from date time, import date time. And title, we're keeping it null by default, but we can do the same thing we did for the publish date. Here we can mention like null is equal to true. We have an option called default where we can provide a value. For example, I can just give it here and I can remove this thing here. And title, I make it null. So first so Django takes care of everything automatically, so we can pass all these things to models and Django will take care of it. So let's run the migrations because we made changes in the models. So let's run migrations, make migrations, migrate. So things are changed now. Run server. So let's go to the create route. This time we're creating a blog, and this ID should be dynamic. This should be coming from blog ID. So when a new row is created, Django will automatically assign an ID. So let's get that ID. So for getting ID, it's so simple. We just have to pass blog.id. So let's run this. Let's go to the create link now. So this time when you click on create, a new row data in database should be created. So let's click on create. So it's going to the ID 1. If I refresh database, so as you can see, a draft row is created which has creation date, but publish date is null and title is null, and Django is automatically redirecting so to this ID 1. So now let's go to, for suppose if we click on create again, a second row is created and we are redirected to the URL which with ID 2. So that's what we are doing in this session. In the last session we saw basics of models. We created a model and we made some migrations. We saw all those things. We created some instances. Instances means nothing but rows. We created some rows using models and we deleted them. We did some operations on models. So that's all happened in the last video. We'll see how to render data coming from models using Django. We'll see how to render data coming from models. So if you see the main blog application, here we have a list of blogs which is shown here down, and we want something like that. For example, if I create a new blog, it's creating a new instance. Just check it. New instance. If I go back and create again, it's creating one more instance. Yeah. So each row means each blog. So we have 4 blocks here. We need to show all the blocks here as a list. So for that we have to go to views.py file and let's go to the index function. So index function is responsible for rendering this page. So we'll be writing code here, like we're getting all the blocks So we're creating a variable blog and we are getting all the blog objects or all, and let's create a variable called context body blocks, and we can pass render context, which is context text. So if I go to index.html and if I render the context we are providing, so what's the use of providing context? So when you provide extra context here, so when Django renders the template, you can use whatever present inside the context. So this variable, whatever that's present, you can use those. You can use that data inside templates. So Django takes care of all those things while rendering. For example, okay, if I want to get the body, so this is body, and you have to pass double curly braces. So you have to encapsulate in it in double curly braces. Then if you refresh the page, you can see query set is getting printed, but it's a Python object. HTML can't render query set because HTML doesn't have feature. This is a Python object. So you just have to get the attributes from this query set, and you have to pass them inside HTML. So we will see that later. Before that, uh, let's see some useful functions using this context. For example, you can do looping over the data for item in data. Sorry, it's body, right? Body. Item in body. I can render item. If I refresh the page, as you can see, it's printing all the items. And you can also do this. For example, you can make an unordered list, and here you're making a loop, and then you're creating a list item, then you're putting this item inside this list item. So as you can see, a new list is created. So you can do for loops. You also have if condition. So you can use it like same, instead of percentage for, you'll use if, and you'll write some condition and you can use it. So documentation you have all these things, so you can refer that. As of now we don't need all those things, so I'm not going into deep into all those things, so let's ignore it. So here we'll be taking advantage of that. So here down I'll be creating a for loop for item in body. I'll just copy this. Yes, copy and paste it. Let's make it, let's remove it. Then here let's make it, and here in context we're providing body and we're getting blogs. And if you see blog, you have these columns. You have content, creation date, publish date, and title. I want to use publish date here. So I can simply use it using double curly braces. I can just do item dot published date. This will get the published date, but as of now published date is null, so you won't see anything. but still let's run it. If you see, previously there were no blog posts, but now you can see 4 blog posts. But publish state is null, so it's showing none. For example, if you use creation date, it's not null. As you can see in database, it has some value. So let's refresh it. So you're getting some date here. And I want to identify like with what ID it belongs to. Suppose if it is blog post 1, it should be blog post 1. If it is blog post 2, it should be blog post 2. For doing that, I can just simply do this item dot id. As you can see, it's blog post 1, 2, 3. If I create a new blog post now, if I go back, there is blog post 4. Now let's improve functionality. So when you click on the individual blog post, it's going inside a post page. If you click on the second post, it's going to the same page, same content is getting repeated. But we want to avoid this. Instead of that, when you click on this post, it should go into that particular blog post. So we have 4 rows and 4 individual blocks. For that, we wanna use dynamic URLs. We already discussed in the last session. So let's use it. So here in templates, if you go to the link, see, you can see the link here. So the reference is /blog/post. That's why it's going to the particular URL. But if I give item.id and save and refresh it, if I go now, it's going to the blog/1, but we haven't created any function for this. We haven't defined any route. That's why it's throwing the error, but it's working. So it's going to the blog/2, and if you click on block 3, it's going to /blog/3. That's what we wanted. Now let's work on the render function. So let's go to urls.py file inside blocks, and let's create a path blog retrieve. Let's create function now. Let's go to views file. Let's create retrieve function. So first we'll be getting blog instance. How we'll get it? We'll query it blog.objects.get. So we have a .get function for querying inside the blog model. So we are querying based on ID. Let's go to ID. So let's save it in a variable called blog, and render will be passing the context is equal to id blog dot id json dot dump s, because if you see, the default value here is empty dictionary or empty JSON, and we are storing it as a string. It's a text field, but we want to pass it as a JSON. So we are doing this json.dumps blog.content. Okay, it's looking good. Let's pass the context now. And we have to create a retrieve.html file, because there is no retrieve.html file. There is an error here. You can see in the minimap there is an error because there is no comma here. Okay, now there is no error. And here let's go to templates and create a new file, retrieve.html. Now let's start writing the code. So let's create a container. So let's go and refresh the page, and let's try now. Views. I forgot to give here request. That's why it's throwing error. Now let's refresh it. Yeah, As you can see, we extended the layout.html, sorry, layout slash base.html. Now we are writing code inside the main block. So now let's start using editor.js inside our project. First go to editor.js and then go to configuration. So as you can see, you have initialization step here, but before that we have to load editor.js library. For that, just go here and search for this, like this one. We'll be using editor.js from CDN. So go to your base.html and here just paste it, and we can use editor.js. But for that you have to go to html, retrieve.html, inside create a div, and let's create a javascript file for retrieve function, and here copy the configuration, copy this, and now we have to link this javascript file inside this html file. For that we just have to call script, save it, and let's run the code now. Let's refresh the page now. Let's see, there is some error. Element with id editor.js is missing. Okay, now it's running. If you see, we got the functionality. This is my blog, new blog, but there is nothing. So if you click on plus button, there is just text. But if you see the initial blog which I created, text functionality, heading, delimiter, checklist, list, raw HTML. So all this features will be can be included using plugins. So for that it's simple. You just have to go into the individual link and just copy the URL from here. Go to base.html. Here I can do script src and same, and here they're asking to change configuration, like inside tools, make header, add this. That's inside retrieve.js. Let's copy this entire tools thing from here, copy, paste it. Okay, if you refresh now, so you have text and heading. Previously you don't have heading, you're getting heading. Similar way you can just include all the things from here. Now I'll just do it in the background and you'll be seeing the complete thing from here. So I added the configuration required for making the editor.js work. So this happened in the background, as we're not discussing about vanilla JavaScript in this tutorial. So I included all these things in the background, so you can just copy paste them for this tutorial. So here you can see the one which we already have, like editor.js, and here we're including other tools like header, delimiter, paragraph, image, checklist, list, and all other things, whatever we need. And then we are calling document.querySelector.save button. So this is the save button, and we need to pass it id, like save button. So it's getting so we are passing the selector, and we are getting the element, and then we are using dot add event listener to add some event during click function. So when you click on the save function, it will go through this function. So editor dot save dot then and it will get the data, and then we're passing that data to save function. So save is a function which we created in the bottom. So save function, what it does is it will create a form data object. It will be an empty object, and then it will append the data. Means the data which we are passing as a parameter, it will append data as a string. JSON.stringify will convert JSON data into string. So editor.save will return a JSON object, and we are converting that into string, and we are inputting it inside this form data. After that, we are creating this request options object. So this is required when you're doing post request, put request, or patch request. Whatever you're doing other than get request, you have to do this. And in post request, so Django has CSRF verification. So CSRF is like a mechanism to avoid API calls or requests from other websites or third-party websites. So it's a security feature. So for making it work, we just have to pass this XCSRF token, and the CSRF token variable, which is coming from retrieve.html, which I added here. As you can see, there is a script ag, and here I created a variable CSRF token, and you can, this is a inbuilt this variable comes by default. You're not passing it in context. You can just call it using curly braces. So I'm getting that variable, and I'm just passing it here, and then in body I'm passing form data, and here I'm just calling fetch function. Fetch function is used for making API calls. So we are making an API call to /blog plus ID. Means ID is coming from here, and this ID is coming from context. So we have to pass this ID inside context, and then we are just passing this we're doing this request, and we're getting response, and we're printing the data, output data in console. So let's see how it's working. So let's refresh the page. If I click on save button now, as you can see, request is made. If I open network tab, I'm keeping fetch or XHR, and you can see so API request is made to /blog/1, and response is coming okay. And payload, if you see, payload is coming like this. So let me show you what's happening. So here document.query selector, and you're passing selector. So when click event happened, so this function will run. So this is something called as arrow function. This is a shorter way to write a function in JavaScript. So this is the function body, and so the editor.save, editor is a variable which was created here, and this contains the object. This is the object of editor.js. So we are doing editor.save, and it will return a promise. In JavaScript we have something called as promise. So we have to resolve it, and for that you don't have to stress out about it. Just know that these things are there. And if you want to see data, console.log data, I'll refresh it. Now I'll just click on save button again. I'll go to console. As you can see, data is printed here. So this data is sent to the server using this post request. For example, if I create something like this is my post, and if I'm adding a heading here, blog 1, if I click on save, and you can see data is changed now. initially there are no blocks, but sorry, there are blocks, but it's an arrow of 0. There are no elements. But here I added two elements, two blocks. So first block is a paragraph block and second is a heading block. And if I open this, you can see in blocks two elements are there, and first one is paragraph and second one is header element. If I even open it more, then you can see the data here. If I open this one, you can see the data, and level is also present. Um, so that's the purpose of editor.save function. So we are getting the data and we are passing the data to save function. So this save function is creating a form object and appending that this data inside this form data object. So you can see that here in payload. If I open this link like API call, then you can see data which was created like here, and we're passing value as json.stringify of data. So the data which we saw earlier, so it's converted to a string. That's the purpose of json.stringify. It's converted to a string and then it is saved inside, so it is sent through a post request, and you can see it's a post request. So it's made, the post request is made to this URL. If I open urls.py file, there is this function, retrieve function. It's going inside this retrieve function, but there is no code for handling that post functionality. So let's write code for that. So this is a functionality for get, but let's write for post. If request dot method is equal to post, then this code will run in post request. So um, as you can see, there is a in payload there is a variable called data. For getting the data in Django, you can just get it using post dot get of data, and let's store it in a variable called data, and save it, and let's check it now. Blog, I'm just clicking on this and this blog is open. This is my blog post. Save it. There is some internal server issue. What's the issue? Let's see it in terminal. String has no attribute content in line number 21. Sorry, we have to save these things inside blog. Blog.content, blog.publish_date. Now let's save it and let's see. Now there is no issue, and it's 200. Let's check in database whether our changes are reflected or not. So as you can see, published state is reflected, and in content, this new content, whatever we inserted is inserted, and the value is this. So now if I refresh this page, Data is still not appearing. There is a reason for that. Let's check it. I just made this minor modification. It's a strange issue, but still when I did that, it's working. So if I go to some blog post now, you can see content of that blog post. So this is how far we came in this tutorial. So you can click on the create button. So once you click on the create button, just go back. A new blog post will be created. Just go there. You can type some content. Once you save it, you can just go back and you can see that particular blog post. So this is for the video, and in the next video we are going to see about forms, model forms, and also we are going to discuss about class-based views.
In this video, we'll be discussing about Django forms and class-based views. So let's start with forms. So Django has set of tools and libraries for working with forms, and there are many benefits with it. It contains functionality like preparing and restructuring data, creating HTML forms, and you can receive and process the data and you can save it. So you get all this functionality through Django forms. In Django, you have two different types of forms. One is regular form and another one is model form. So a regular form is inherited from a normal form class, and whereas model form is inherited from model form class. So the main difference here is in regular form, you will define your own fields, you will give all the constraints yourself, you do everything yourself. Whereas in model form, you don't have to write fields. Django automatically take those field names through model. You just have to include the model name inside metadata. So let's start writing forms. First, go to VS Code and go to some app and create a file called forms.py. Inside that, import first forms module, then create a form. I want to create a customer form which takes customer data. So I'm inheriting from form, and then I can define fields. I want name, and I want email. Save it, and let's use this form inside our use app. So create a function. For example, I'm creating customer form view request, and now I'll get the form. So let's import it. So customer form is inside forms file from dot forms customer form. Then create a HTML template. So in templates, just create a file for customer form.html, and inside that, just copy the code from retrieve.html and just paste it. And let's remove the inner body. And then for rendering the form, you just have to pass form inside these tags. And go back to views file. You have a views function, just render that template, return render request. We have to give template name. So template name is customer form.html, and then let's pass form inside the template. So this form is taken from here and it will be shown in the template. So let's link this function to a URL. Go to urls.py file and then create a new function, customer form view, customer form, save it, and then go to browser, go to localhost, customer form. So as you can see, you're getting a form. You didn't create any HTML, you didn't write any HTML, Django is automatically generating for you. Here, as you can see, there is no styling, but I want styling. You can just include it. Just go to forms.py file, and then here you can add widgets. Here I want to include text input, and then I can give attributes like placeholder. As of now, there is no placeholder, but I want to give a placeholder, give some name, and then I want to use advantage of bootstrap class. It will look so good. So I'll add a bootstrap class here. And now I'll do the same thing for email. I'll just copy this, and then here instead of text input, I'll give email input, and then attributes, give some email, save and refresh. You can see form is much better now, but still padding and all, it's not good. You can just change it. Just go to HTML file. Here you can give padding 5 from all the sides, and I want it to take only half of the size. So now it does all the thing. So you can see it's much better. If you want, you can give even more margin. For example, I can give margin here my3, and here also I'm giving margin and y-axis 3. Refresh, you can see it's good. And you can give a button, save button. So create a button, save button, and the type will be submit. So if you click on the button, the data will be saved. So let's get some styling here. Class button, button success. Refresh. This is looking much better now. And as you have seen, you have given it as a text input, and then here you have given it as an email input. It's not inside form, so here I have to do like form action is equal to it's the url's app, copy this route, paste it, and then post, and put this form inside this, and also button inside this. Now if you give something and some random email, and if you click on save, first you have to reload the page, because Django don't have a hot reload, so you have to do it manually yourself. Let's click on save. Before that, I'll put it on fetch, xhr, and as you can see, Django redirected to some page. And if I open that, so a request is made to this customer/customer-form URL, and it's a post request, but unauthorized request, because there is some CSRF verification issue. So Django by default comes with this. You can disable it, but it's not at all recommended. Instead, you just know how to handle the CSRF token. So while creating forms, just make sure that you include this token CSRF underscore token and percentage. Just save it, refresh it, go back, and if you open the HTML, if you inspect it, a new input is created and it's a hidden input, and the name is CSRF middleware token and the value is this. So it's created, and we can just give some value now, and the same input. If you click on save, nothing happened. And if you go to network tab, you will see a request is made, and it's a post request. And if you check payload, name, whatever you gave, it's there, email, it's there, and CSR middleware token, it's there. So Django has something called a CSR middleware token. So the main reason of having CSRF token is to avoid cross site requests. So by using CSR verification, you can avoid the incoming traffic from other websites. Django uses this token to identify from which site you're coming from. So this is all about CSRF token model form. So here in models.py file, I just created a model. Let me create a model like class customer models.model, and then it will have two fields. One is character field and max length of 50, and another one is email. It is also imported from models.email field, and you can run migrations. Once you're done with migrations, you will have a table inside database. Let me show you that. So as you can see, a new record is created, new table is created under app name app, and the table name is customer. And you can see the name and email fields are there, the character limit, it's present. So we created a model, and let's use the model inside form. So go to forms.py file, and now you don't have to use all of these things. If you want to get take advantage of the models you already have, you can just call class meta and pass model is equal to customer form, and then fields is equal to name, comma, email. It's imported. Okay, why it was not imported? Okay, because form is here, but okay, you shouldn't provide model like a customer form as model. Instead, you have to provide a customer model. So let's import it from models, import customer, and if you refresh the page now, you won't see anything. What's the issue? Oh, I forgot to inherit from model form. Now let's refresh it. You can see the same name and email are there, but no styling is present. If you want styling, you can do the same thing. You can just override it with this and save and refresh. Now you're getting all the styles back. So we saw how to create forms, and we used it inside HTML templates. We used both a normal regular form and also the big form you have. Let's see how to process the data which we get from forms. For example, if you're passing some input and if you want me to check, I just go to views file. Instead, like I'll just put it like if request.method is equal to post, then form is equal to customer of request dot post, and here form is equal to customer form. So you can get data like print form dot data. Save, and now let's submit it. There was some error. SGI request has no attribute method. Okay, there was a spelling mistake here. Now let's run it. As you can see, a query dict is printed and all the inputs and values are printed out. So this is how we can get data from the form, and you can use this data for creating instances. For example, if you want to create a new customer instance, you can do it like customer.objects.create name is equal to name and email is equal to email, and from this data you can just get attributes of name and email like this: name, email. Good. So uh, this is the basic information about forms. Let's see class-based views now. So class-based views are similar to function-based views, but they differ in some aspects. So so I'll tell you some differences between function-based views and class-based views. Function-based views are very easy to write. They are easy to understand. And whereas class-based views are little complicated, you need to have understanding of object-oriented programming for getting to know all those things. And in function-based views, you can easily uh, and function-based views have like good functionality, and you can extend it. But compared to class-based views, function components have limitations. Whereas with class-based views, you can use it like anything. You can use mixins to add functionality. You can just do magic to whatever you want. So now let's see by creating a class-based view. So for creating class-based view, you have to create a class of name something like customer view, and then inherit it from view class. And once you are inherited, we can write logic in get post methods self comma request pass. So similarly, you have post method, you have put method, you have delete method, you have all these methods in class-based views. So here in function-based views, you are using if request.method is equal to post, whereas object-based views, you don't have to bear all those things. You can do it smart. So let's mimic this functionality, whatever we have. So here, form is equal to customer form, and define post of self comma request form is equal to customer form of self comma request dot post. So now let's use this function. So go to your file, let's create a route customer form new, and in views file, this guy is trying to remove that thing from the head. They're stopping, they had a fight, and after that they came home and they're discussing about all these things. So here we can just use customer view dot as view, and you can remove this name. If I go back and refresh the page and go for search new, okay, if you have used generated HTTP object, instead none is returned. And similarly, you can just render it, return render of request comma forms dot py return render forms.html. So once we are done with all these things, just go, oh, there is no forms.html. We have to put it like customer form.html. And now let's go and refresh. Before that, just go to URLs file and check. Okay, we have a route. Okay, new. So what's the issue? Template does not exist. So where is this template present? Customer form.html. Okay, it's not forms, it's form. And refresh. And you have to pass it form, form, same way. And now let's refresh the page. As you can see, it's the same, but now this function is coming from class-based view. So this is all for this video. We discussed about forms and class-based views. So I have assignment for you guys. If you're interested, you can extend the block functionality to make it look similar to mine. So just whatever route you have, just change it to edit route. Wherever your blog is running, just change that to edit route. Wherever you're writing blog, just instead of keeping it slash, just keep it like a retrieve route, like slash update slash 65 something something.